there are certain aspects about the book that, to this day, still leave archaeologists and historians confused and unsure how the book was even written.
In October 2023, at the edge of the Chicxulub impact crater, buried deep beneath the floor of the Gulf of Mexico, an exploratory drill uncovered an ancient manuscript, preserved in a manner that defied reason for more than 5,000 years. When researchers succeeded in decoding the nonverbal symbols engraved within it, what was revealed plunged every scientist involved into a state of shock. The book did not speak of the past. It described a sequence of events that matched our present era with unsettling precision. This was not a chronicle. It was a schedule, and its final stages were named panic, violence, and despair. The invisible impact. In late October 2023, a vast industrial facility owned by the energy conglomerate Apex was operating roughly 200 miles north of the Yucatan Peninsula. Its objective was purely commercial. The team was mapping potential methane gas pockets trapped beneath a thick layer of sedimentary salt, positioned along the outer rim of an ancient impact crater at a depth of 3,000 meters below the ocean surface, in a realm without light and under pressure capable of crushing steel. An industrial diamond drill bit suddenly came to a halt. This tool, worth millions of dollars and engineered to pulverize the hardest granite, emitted a piercing shriek through the sensor network, followed by violent vibrations that signaled a catastrophic failure. The drill bit disintegrated. It had not merely become lodged, it had struck a surface whose hardness exceeded every known natural rock in the geological record. Seismic sensors, designed to distinguish between limestone and basalt, returned an inexplicable signal. The acoustic reflection was nearly perfect, with no absorption and no scattering. The data indicated the presence of an artificial structure with extraordinarily complex geometry, located precisely at coordinates believed to mark the center of an ancient mass extinction event. The decision to retrieve the object was not driven by archaeological curiosity, but by cold economic logic. The company needed to understand what had destroyed such an expensive piece of equipment. A remotely operated vehicle equipped with powerful robotic arms began its descent into eternal darkness. What the high-resolution cameras transmitted back to the control room left the entire engineering team in stunned silence. Resting half-buried in fine seafloor silt was a jet-black polyhedral object, completely free of any trace of biological corrosion, despite lying there for millennia. When the robotic arm gently brushed away the sediment, it revealed a flawless, perfectly smooth surface. More striking still was a narrow slot running along one face of the polyhedron. Within it sat what appeared to be a book, or a thick dossier, fashioned from the same black material and fitted so precisely that it seemed engineered for that exact space. The object was not protected by a chest or sealed behind any ritual barrier. It lay there like an installed device, waiting to be activated. The existence of a manufactured object at such depth and in such a geological context stood in absolute contradiction to everything known about prehistoric navigation or construction. It forced the engineering team to confront an unsettling reality. Their geological maps, long considered exceptionally accurate, had overlooked a massive and unexplainable variable, a material outside of history. Immediately after being brought to the surface, the book-shaped object was placed under the highest level of security and transported to an advanced materials laboratory in Houston, Texas. Under the cold white lights of analytical instruments, it resembled a thick book with glossy black pages. The similarity ended there. When Dr. Elias Vance, a leading expert in materials science, attempted to extract a sample using the most advanced metal tools available, something extraordinary occurred. Every instrument slid across the surface of the pages without leaving a single scratch, as if the material were harder than the most perfect diamond known to science. Deeper investigation began with Raman spectroscopy. The results left the entire research team speechless. The pages were composed of a single-layer carbon-silicon crystal lattice. Its purity was astonishing, a level that in modern semiconductor manufacturing would require ultra-clean vacuum environments and weeks of controlled production. Yet this was only the beginning of the paradox. When scientists dated the thin layer of ocean sediment clinging to the spine of the object, radiometric methods returned a consistent and undeniable result. The object had been buried on the seafloor for at least 5,200 years. A logical void opened before them. The year 3000 BCE belonged to the early Bronze Age, to writing impressed into clay and monumental yet primitive architecture. It was not an era of room-temperature superconductors, self-healing materials, or crystal structures of such complexity. The contradiction between the ancient date and a level of engineering far beyond human imagination raised a haunting question. Where did this object come from? Next, researchers used high-intensity X-rays to scan through the pages. What they found was astonishing. There was no ink of any kind. Instead, each page surface was covered with billions of microscopic depressions, arranged in intricate binary and geometric patterns. This was not handwriting. It was not a carved script. It was data, recorded using an engraving technology whose precision surpassed that of any known ancient civilization, and even exceeded our most advanced modern laser etching techniques. The implication was profound. The information contained within was not the product of ancient human intellect, but rather a form of record created by something entirely different. The Journal of the Stars. When scientists turned their attention to the contents of the book, they quickly realized they were facing something that followed none of the rules of language. There was no grammar, no syntax, no symbols representing sounds or concepts. The true challenge lay in pattern recognition, a task that required the combined expertise of theoretical mathematicians, astrophysicists, and cryptography specialists. The first page was a dense matrix of nanoscale depressions. The breakthrough came when a computer scientist, while running frequency analysis algorithms, noticed an unusually repeating binary sequence. When converted into decimal form, the room fell silent. The number was pi, calculated accurately to the 10th digit. From that moment, the entire structure was reinterpreted. These were not letters. They were geometric and mathematical representations of the universe itself. Clusters of points arranged according to the golden ratio. Binary sequences encoding fundamental physical constants. The speed of light, the Planck constant, the exact mass of a hydrogen atom. None of this was written in words. It was expressed through pure mathematical relationships. The pages that followed grew even more complex. Astronomers recognized that the diagrams were not abstract designs, but star maps of extraordinary precision. Using cosmological simulation software to rewind the night sky thousands of years, they determined that these maps matched the positions of stars as seen from Earth at specific moments in time. 12,000 years ago, 26,000 years ago, and even farther back into the deep past. The book appeared to function as a cosmic clock, using the stars themselves as markers of time. The most disturbing discovery, however, was yet to come. Beside each star map, each temporal marker, lay another immense dataset. Scientists did not see smooth curves like those on a digital screen. Instead, they saw millions of individual data points, each meticulously engraved as a nanoscale coordinate. After weeks of reconstruction, the meaning became clear. These points formed three-dimensional graphs depicting the state of the planet at those exact moments. One axis represented time. Another showed atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration. Additional axes tracked magnetic field strength, global average temperature, and the presence of artificial radioactive isotopes. The cold precision of its presentation did not resemble a historical chronicle. It had the structure of a system incident report, an automated log recording critical parameters, the page corresponding to 5,000 years ago, the moment when the book was buried, displayed a growth curve that ended abruptly, followed by an extended region of blank data, marked only by a flat horizontal line. Complete silence. The data suggested a terrifying hypothesis. That civilization of that era did not collapse due to war or disease, but because of a global physical event that occurred precisely when it reached a deep understanding of those mathematical constants. Evidence in ash, with the incident timestamps extracted from the book. The research team began cross-referencing them against global geological and archaeological databases. What they found transformed confusion into deep unease. Mysteries that had lingered for decades within the scientific community suddenly acquired a terrifying coherence. Geologists had long identified layers of radioactive ash and vitrified material at ancient sites such as Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan and the glass-like hill forts of Scotland. These vitrified layers, where soil and stone had been exposed to extreme heat and then cooled rapidly into glass, were traditionally attributed to massive fires or lightning strikes. Yet the dates of these geological layers aligned perfectly with the abrupt cutoffs visible in the energy graphs recorded in the book. The glassy sands of the desert were not products of nature. They were physical evidence of large-scale thermal events. Even the oldest ancient texts began to take on new meaning. The Indian epic Mahabharata contains passages describing a weapon whose explosion was brighter than 1,000 suns, that caused water to boil and incinerated enemies, leaving survivors whose hair and nails fell out. Once dismissed as poetic imagination, these descriptions now carried the unsettling tone of eyewitness testimony to the effects of acute radiation exposure. Myths from cultures across the world, stories of great floods or divine purges, no longer seemed like simple legends. They may be distorted memories, passed down through generations, of real reset events. As the analysis widened, the team realized that the location where the book was found was no coincidence. The Chicxulub impact crater itself was marked within the book as the largest reset point in the biological history of the planet. The engraved data suggested that the Cretaceous extinction was not merely an asteroid accident, but a large-scale cleansing mechanism triggered when the planetary ecosystem reached a specific state of energy imbalance. Ancient civilizations recorded in the book, such as the Maya and the Sumerians, did not collapse because of drought or war. They were systematically erased at the precise moment they began to manipulate matter at the atomic level. Human history, as revealed by the book, is not a straight line of progress. It is a trapped cycle, where civilizations rise, advance, and then repeat the same fatal mistake. The existential twist and the warning. The final page of the book was not a conclusion or a prophecy. It was something far colder and more terrifying. A running status bar, a comparative chart. The data engraved there was not a fixed sequence of events, but a set of threshold limits, variables, and an equation describing the rules of the system. As scientists, their hands trembling, began plotting the parameters of the world in the year 2024 into the chart. From global energy consumption and atmospheric carbon dioxide levels to the intensity of the global telecommunications network. A horrifying truth emerged. The marker representing our civilization lay at exactly the same coordinates as those of the previous civilizations, positioned at the moment just before their erasure. The book confirmed with brutal clarity that we are iteration 6, 5 times before in Earth history. Humanity had developed, reached the age of information and nuclear energy, and then, without exception, triggered the Great Filter. The warning engraved in the book carried no moral or philosophical tone. It did not judge. It was purely technical, Like an error message in a cosmic operating system, the system does not sustain energy consumption variables beyond permitted thresholds. Intervention in the physical source code will trigger surface sanitation protocols. This explained why the book was constructed from an almost indestructible material and buried in one of the deepest and safest places on the planet. It was not made for its contemporaries. It was a message in a bottle, a warning sent to us, or to whatever intelligent beings might arise after our disappearance. Those who buried it were the final scientists of Iteration 5. In their last days, they attempted to leave behind a single legacy, a technical warning for the next version, defining the absolute limit that must never be crossed. The greatest tragedy of the story lies here: to discover, retrieve, and most importantly, understand the contents of the book. A civilization must reach a sufficiently advanced technological level. It must be capable of drilling to the deep ocean floor, analyzing materials at the atomic scale, and comprehending universal physical constants. Yet reaching that level of technology also means it is already too late to turn back. We activated the countdown simply by becoming advanced enough to find it. Our existence, our progress itself, is the proof that we have reached the edge. The silence of the grave diggers. Immediately after the algorithmic translation of the final page was confirmed and verified, all activity ceased. The Titan IV drilling platform was permanently shut down. Apex Energy, a giant of the energy industry, abruptly announced the termination of all exploration projects in the Gulf of Mexico, citing officially unforeseen geological safety risks. Soon after, the military and intelligence agencies took control of all artifacts and related data. A curtain of absolute silence descended. This silence was not meant to conceal aliens or ancient magic. It was the result of a cold calculation, a strategic decision made by the most powerful elites on the planet. They understood that if this truth were made public, that our civilization had reached a programmed death threshold, and that any further development would only accelerate extinction. Human society would collapse into chaos immediately, long before any sanitation protocol was activated. The global economy, financial markets, future planning, faith in religion and government, all would become meaningless if the end were dictated by an irreversible physical law. Panic, violence, and despair would destroy civilization from within. So perhaps governments and corporate leaders are not trying to prevent the catastrophe, because the book makes clear that it cannot be prevented. It is a natural rule of the system. Instead, they may be using the remaining time to prepare a different plan, one far more ruthless, to ensure the survival of a carefully selected few, those who will become the seeds of Iteration 7, while the rest of humanity continues to live, work, and dream of the future. We are in truth living through the final days of a harvest soon to be reaped. The final question facing each of us who has glimpsed this truth is no longer how to become wealthier or more powerful. It is a profoundly existential choice. Should we stop everything, abandon technology, dismantle the internet, and retreat into the shadows of a pre-industrial age to deceive the system into believing we are not yet ripe for cleansing? Or will we continue to rush forward at full speed, hoping that this time, the sixth time, we will be the exception, that we will be strong and wise enough to break the cycle of fate, even though the book, the only physical evidence we possess, tells us that this is impossible?